You're listening to Polymatic.media, episode 108 for November 2023. Welcome to the Polymaticast. Hey, John, how's it going?
It's late in the month.
Yeah, I just had the same thought, which means that you're going to have to edit this if you wanted it to stay released inside the month.
Yeah.
So,
That's good. Usually I edit it pretty quickly, but then I let it simmer for a bit. So I don't always. I sometimes go over it like 3 or 4 times before I actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Got it. Is that why?
I don't do a lot of editing on it, but I just want to go over it and make sure I didn't say anything stupid, or somebody else said something stupid, or there's like a irritating cough somewhere, or
Yeah, which is going to be me.
Neighbors making noises.
Yeah, that would be you.
Yep.
I used to rake through it a bunch.
Oh, yeah, I've seen
on
you
the early
edit,
OGs.
podcasts.
In the early OGs, because people were doing that. You
were doing ums and ahs, and you collected like a file full of ums and ahs.
Yeah, there are certain people that did that. And see, I'm doing it right now, and it was a problem. But also, they were being jackasses, and pretty consistently. And while they were having a good old time being a jackass, that resulted in me having to comb through it a lot and clean it up and just keep refining it. So that one, it stayed on topic, it stayed focused, it wasn't so random, and make them as individuals seem a little less like jackasses. And when I asked them to, like, chill out a little bit, give some notes to help me reduce the editing efforts, they're like, screw you, I'm going to be a jackass. And I was like, all right. And at some point I get a little pissy about it, and I was like, I'll let the jackass through. And then I'll get from some people, they were like, I sounded like such a jackass. I said, that's what you recorded, man. I asked you to just chill out a little bit, tone it down. You wouldn't. And you're not helping me any, and I cannot be spending an extra 45 minutes cleaning up your BS on your segment because you want to be a jackass. So I'm letting it through. If you're a jackass on mic, that's what goes through. Oh, I don't like that. Then you'll tone it down, right? It's like, yeah, all right. And some people that reduced, and other people it didn't change, right? They were being a jackass either way, and sometimes it irritated me enough that I didn't want the show to be feeling like, that all the time. So I'd spend a lot of time raking through things. So I totally get it. Yeah, but I'm your problem, unfortunately. I'm sorry about that.
Do you like my my new light up DeLorean?
Yeah, it doesn't look as good through the camera washes it out.
Yeah.
So you don't get as much contrast. It just looks like it's one step away from nuclear explosion from the inside out.
The one below it is even worse.
It's all washed out. Yeah.
Because the lights from the bottom of the DeLorean from the wheels is shining down onto the model below it. So I have the.
Can you get like a mat or something to have it sit on so that it doesn't?
Yeah, it's on glass, but I'll have to see what I want to do, if I want to keep it there or not. Because the power supply issue is still an issue, because it's now powered by a battery bank. Yeah, there's like a whole distribution system for with 50 centimeters of wire you can get to connect multiple models to one USB lead, which is great. I want that. But I would have to spend another $30 on it, and I'm kind of like, I don't know if I want to keep it there. But if I want to get more models to light up, so I have some big NASA models, like the space shuttle and that kind of stuff in the queue to do. So
that's neat.
Yeah, and I have the Apollo 11 lander, and there's a light up kit for it, which is another $30. I'm like, maybe I should get it. But we also got one for the office. So we set up a little cabinet at the office with I have one of the Movi globes for Mars.
Oh,
Mars
yeah.
globe.
Those are neat looking.
Yeah, I have one I took one to the office and put it into the cabinet. So our office is entirely space themed now.
That's
So
cool.
yeah, it's kind of cool. We didn't get the ISS though. It would have been very nice to have and hang from the ceiling, but no, it's just a lander, and I have a bunch of like other Legos that I might bring like a model to the office. Maybe bring the space shuttle because it's too much taking up too much space here. I'll have to look into it. Just maybe put some other cool stuff on the walls or whatever. It's just decorating a little bit. That's nice.
Yeah, that's neat.
This is the time of year.
As I was just telling you a moment ago, I have an office at the job that I got this year, and I mean I literally have an office with a door. So I have a bookcase. I have two bookcases, one with doors on it, one without. Um, so I have plenty of opportunity to put things like that in the office on the bookshelf. Right now, it just sits empty behind me. Um, yeah. So the other one, I put a couple
Legos.
things in there. Hmm?
Legos.
Yeah, I mean it could. So I don't want to reveal too much of where I work and what I work, but they are a certain kind of company where there's a certain kind of interest for things, and I'll say it like this without leading into the details of the company, but you'll see this like nice picture of something. Um, could be a bridge, it could be a building, it could be a big old area or something in your town or in a part of the world or whatever it is. And the difference is, usually around the office, like inspirational, Mount Kinley, Everest, blah, 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 blah. Show mountains. And that's how we name our offices and our conference rooms. And right, it's meant to be motivational, inspirational, whatever. Things that are around the office. And it's not unusual for you to go to a company and see stuff like that. But in this company, that's likely something that we did. You see a nice, beautiful bridge that's like, from an engineering perspective, is really impressive, won awards or something. And it's like, oh, that's our picture from a thing we built. Right? And I was like, oh, that's interesting. Walking around one day and I saw the one right outside my office. I was like, oh, 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 and all connected. I was like, oh, okay, that's a difference. Is it's not the big inspirational. It's like a small portfolio of work.
Hmm.
So, yeah, it was interesting.
I've been turning off a lot of old stuff.
Yeah,
Deep revisioning servers, turning off old services, and like stuff that I've had to maintain for years. I'm like, yeah, turning stuff off is great. Like moving stuff to other machines, setting everything up, preparing everything, like from everything we've learned in the last couple of years. And I'm like, okay, setting up new stuff and then slowly turning off the old stuff and then nothing breaking so far. So
yeah.
it's really nice.
When I was in House One, I was working at a place that was sort of getting rid of servers, and you could have kind of assemble all the parts from these are pretty nice servers, but this was at an era of time where server motherboard technology and stuff was changing, and so the main guy was like, we had to get rid of a lot of stuff. They had their own data center. I was like, we have to get rid of a lot of stuff. Why don't we offer it to employees who want to take some servers home?
Yeah, you had like an entire freaking stack in your
Yeah,
in
and
your
so
basement.
I sort of got the shaft on that because they're like, Alan, help people put together things, but you can't take the cut of it that you want, right? You can't take the best quality one. Yeah, you can do it when it's what's left over. And I'm like, I hate that guy, that VP that made me do that, right? And I was like, you jerk, because I should have a right to pick the best first if you're going to have me burn all my time helping other people. But regardless, so I had a bunch of servers, and there was a shortener backup was in there for OG Link backup or something on the same box. You configured it when you were in the States. And so when I moved between houses, I moved them from house one to house two. Uh, I did that, and then I realized, why is my power bill so? Oh, because all of these redundant power supplies. Oh, right. I have a mini data center in the basement, the mechanical room of the basement. It's like I don't really need to have the house have a domain server and controller in the house. So I turned all that stuff off.
Like
Um,
the amount of power that those things drank, and with the amount,
mhm.
of power a Raspberry Pi these days can do
Right,
compared to that kind of
compared to
shit.
that. Yeah, definitely. And so the thing is, disposing of that costs money, right? So how do you do that? How do you do that ethically, at least in the U.S., in a way that like it's not a problem? So I just sort of powered them all off, and I let them just sort of collect dust until I moved to house three, which is the house I live in now, the one where I bought it. Um, so I got rid of all that stuff then. But I did definitely power them off a good 20 years prior. So, maybe 10, maybe about 10 years prior. So, before doing that. And the place that does the junking also looks at all your gear and they recycle things appropriately.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
This is not physical servers. These are virtual servers. So
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of nice. It's just preparing everything for like
And
cleaning up.
they still eat power though, just being online, even if they're
Well,
virtual
they
or
they eat
containers.
money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
So we went.
you mean like co-location stuff?
No, they're virtual machines. So we're in a. Yeah, I won't tell the exact where we are. So, but just
Mm-hmm.
we use virtual machines.
Right. Got it. So like at work, yeah, yeah, you have to. The problem is then you deploy something and then you have a workhorse of a system, and you have a backup. If you're lucky, you set up a backup, a primary or secondary, and unless you architect your applications to be more distributive, um, and dynamic, right? That's why everyone's like microservice, Docker containers. And I'm like, hold on, those are two separate things, people. They're two separate things. And from a design, application design perspective and architecture, they are definitely different things. But there's not a lot of high priority of interest to be correct in our software engine industry, right? So they think it's one and the same.
The the thing for me is like I think we yeah, I can't really tell you exactly what we set up, but like it's pretty redundant.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's like that's because we have some big customers that need to have like redundancy in mind, and
Mm-hmm.
of course there's like some other services behind that we use, but we don't have control over what they do. It's like external services, but
Right.
like we are like a hub for a lot of stuff. So, and it's yeah, we've had some servers that um have been on for several years, not like continuously on because they of course they have to be rebooted when they update it and whatever, but like they have been in existence for quite a long time, and it's nice to give them a send off and into oblivion and
Right.
delete the instance. Bye
And,
bye.
and I will say that is kind of where sort of Docker containers and Kubernetes is kind of nice, where you can now look, having millions of little nodes floating around doing things isn't necessarily more productive from an architectural design, but it can be. You have to kind of build your software to be redundant if you really are doing like event sourcing and event queuing and things like that. You really think more um, surgically about more precision in what you do and distribution, and being able to sort of turn stuff up and turn stuff on despite the physical hardware or the virtual hardware is more of a thought consideration. Now, that being said, how many people on the other end of that who do that work for big and small companies actually know what they're doing? Probably a very small percentage. I'm not even being mean. And I'm not necessarily including myself in the small percentage, but I've been in places where they've done it because that's the new fun thing to talk about. And that's the thing that
I've seen it
CEOs
go
said,
very bad.
CIOs who say, this is what we're going to do going forward. And you're like, you idiots. Just idiot, right? And you can, someone like me who's been doing architecture for a long time walks in and goes, oh, yeah, that's not how you do that. Are you having these performance problems? This, and exactly that? And you're like, yeah. How do you know that? Oh, I've been doing this for a long time. I have experience. That was not the correct decision. Here's the path going forward, right? And then, years later they go, oh, wow, this is so much better. And that outage didn't affect us at all. I was like, yeah, when you know what you're doing, it's great. When you don't know what you're doing and you're making it up as you go along and your ego's attached to it, that's why things go down all the time. It's insane. That being said, as much as I can be an expert in stuff, I'm not an expert on a lot of things, But knowing how to do stuff is really important, and that's a good side benefit of doing containers and spawnable systems like Kubernetes. So you don't have to worry about the turn down on the machine so much. You can literally spin up 10,000 and pull 10,000 and distribute across the world pretty easily.
The problem with that, like, there's some, regulation stuff that we have to deal with. So it's like, it's not something you can do
easily.
Or
easily.
even like, you have some like logging and whatever that needs to be done in a specific way that you cannot really do
the unclassified information that is kind of classified. I get it. I understand. You have to be real sensitive to that stuff, especially if you interface with parts of government or industry that does. So
but it's kind of nice to turn shit off. It's really nice.
Yeah,
it's gone. It's all gone. Yes, deleted.
I will say it's somewhat of an inconvenience and a positive that the EU has been so much more invested in privacy concerns. They've been driving some positive initiatives, I think, like Apple with USB. What?
RCS?
RCS. A more recent topic. And then what do you mean? Microsoft, you're now required to allow people to uninstall whatever the hell they want. Right? That's a positive.
The problem with that is that we've said that before to the same company. Like they had to enable us to uninstall internet.
Yeah, and
then they just do it again.
Right, and they've all sort of following the big. One of them is following the arrogance of one of the big tech companies, and like, well, they can do it, so can we, right? And that's your Google, that's your Apple, that's your Microsoft, that's your Oracle, right? They're all just doing whatever the hell. IBM too. They do whatever they feel like, and they wall garden at Facebook too, where they wall garden. We were talking about before we started recording, all this new at-home Internet of Things devices, and how everyone is wall gardening with their APIs, and why it works so great with HomeKit and works great with my Amazon voice assistant devices, right? I'm not trying to trigger the words. And it works perfectly, but if I try to reach out to their development API, I get restrictions, and I can't even pay to get past that. Why is that? It's because they have all these sort of privileged partnerships because they want to control the wall garden, where they make the great device. Why can't I just have it on my network and get access to all its telemetry? Oh, well, we find ways to wall garden it, right? And whether it's software or
you can
hardware,
say a lot about
it's all
walled gardens. But I think that Apple has been doing very good on like trying to keep stuff on device. So not having it go out to servers as much as possible is very nice. The only problem is that as soon as you try to get something from your device, like for example with the USB-C debacle, it's like it's still USB too. I mean, come on, that's not that hard to add. Like they're following the letter of the law, but they're out of spite not doing it. Like, come on, dude. You could have the best device. You could have if the iPhones had USB 3 whatever the standard is, like USB-C form factor, whatever USB standard. Now they have USB-C form factor, but not the standard. So they don't have the USB 3 plus whatever.
It's also, it was not created by us, and we have to pay royalties on patents, even if it's cents on the dollar. Like, how dare you make us lose some profit? Said the $1 trillion company.
Lightning is such a bad standard. Well, it works. That's kind of the thing,
well,
right?
I'm sure
if they would have gone for USB 3 on Lightning, would have been fine.
Right.
Like a reversible a thing. But you need more connectors, and USB-C is the only thing that will supply that.
I'm sure the Lightning design, original Lightning design, was probably an inspiration. I think I know, I'm pretty sure I thought I heard it was an inspiration for a USB 3, right? USB-C. A lot of, yes, you're correct, sorry. 3, the C. Which is still also 3 plus, or I don't know, whatever the gen variation.
Well, you can have a USB-C connector with USB 2, apparently.
Yes, because of the backwards compatibility of stuff. But the larger point is the better engineering effort on the connector side and the schematic design side, not necessarily the bandwidth and its actual serial design, definitely inspired improvements in the USB world, which brought us part of it brought us USB-C. So
yeah, but it's so weird that they've been sticking to Lightning for so long. It's like they had USB-C on laptops.
Mm-hmm.
I think almost for 10 years now.
Probably.
Yeah.
But they have to pay. They pay into the royalties on the design.
So
I know, and I know.
It's not like they're gonna miss that.
I know. If they lose $2 million a year from a multi-trillion-dollar company, like whatever, right? That just means one less yacht and skyscraper-sized remote home for one of an executive.
Tim Apple.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's such BS, and but that also becomes systemically a problem elsewhere, and I don't want to go on those rants. So
yeah, it's just so wasteful. Like,
right, yeah,
you can. Some companies are so stuck in certain ways, but on the other hand, they're doing it out of spite. They're not doing it to move the thing forward.
The needle,
for example,
yeah.
Let's talk about NVIDIA for a second. I mean, that's a company that, they could have pushed everything so much further forward, and then they could have crushed like any competition. They just don't do it because they don't have any incentive to make it better.
Right.
Because it's just, we'll sell them anyway.
And that, that argument can be applied to cell phones, the pieces of hardware. So it took an Apple to come along and say, our current technology is at a place where we could probably do way better. So we will, because we're going to be, I want to say this word, and I know I'm going to screw it up, but the differentiator, I had to say it phonetically in my brain. It was not, we have to be the thing that's different, because that's how we're going to become $1 trillion company. Or, be greedy, wealthy, company. And that was their driver, and that was helpful, right? That was helpful for everyone, because prior, at least in the U.S., the people that controlled that, the spec design, were the carriers, and the carriers had zero incentive to be better. Zero. So it took an Apple to come along and said, we're gonna do it. Now, the first iPhone was pretty bad. It was basically just a web browser device at best.
Yeah.
Running on a thin low Linux from iPods.
An iPod.
Yeah. I mean, that's basically what it was. It was really bad. But it got better. and because they could, they did. And then the people that were making all the parts for Apple, anyways, who did all the innovation on the designs for your touch screens and your screen technology and the memory chips and all that stuff. They rewrote their contracts to make sure that they just couldn't compete for the first year, or first year and a half or something, and then that's when all of a sudden Samsung is showing up and LG is showing up with really nice hardware, right? And things like that, and then it provided a really nice competitive landscape. So we're all sort of privileged, even if it's a cheap phone coming out of a part of the world you might not trust. It's still much better than it was back in 2008, 9. Tremendous difference.
Yeah, I remember going to Google I/O and bringing the G1 to Google and getting the Magic, HTC Magic.
Yeah.
Or the Google Ion, as they called it.
Yeah, so the HTC was a company was making all of the. I had lots of HTC phones, they're window phones, but they were better quality ones, but they're still pretty junky. And that again was the customer was the cell carriers in the U.S. and
I had a
European companies would follow with what the established other companies were doing, right? And they're all doing the same thing, and so it's not that like HTC was incapable of producing a better product. That is not what was being requested.
I had a Windows phone before that, and it was so freaking bad. It's like it was no much better connectivity and whatever. So,
but it was much better than those flip Java phones, or even Nokia was making some nice phones, but it was still this really convoluted, terrible Java based.
Oh, the iMode from what was the name of that company in Japan? So they came out in the Netherlands with like an internet phone, but the internet was very limited. It was limited to they called it iMode. So you had to be able to browse to a website, you had to be included in an index. So you weren't allowed to visit anything outside of the index, and you had to pay for specific indexes.
That's
so
terrible.
It's like basically wireless access protocol (WAP), as it was called. That was like the connection, like it was basically just the modem connecting to like over a phone, and you pay per minute and whatever. That was the precursor. It was in the 3310, I think, 3330 from Nokia, and then I had an iMode phone, and it had polyphonic ringtones. We'll get to that in a minute in the fun stuff. Actually, it's kind of on point, but they had like such a limited internet access, and then
I remember.
Then the iPhone and the Android stuff came out, and it's like, oh, we can put a browser on this. It's like we had the browser for Android for a while. It was the WebView thing, and it was just it was WebKit, but it's like a very stripped down version of WebKit, and it was limited and whatever. And now you have just a full Chrome browser on your phone or whatever, or WebKit.
And it also took Qualcomm a fair amount of time to kind of build better chip designs and consider. And I will say
the first Android phones were so freaking bad,
which is it was not, didn't know we were going to be taking a tangent along this path of this kind of stuff, but
we're turning off old servers, so it's kind of on point.
Yeah, but there is a little bit of a, if you kept the link, it's like the last link, which is with Adam Savage and stuff, which is not their typical thing, but they were talking about fake AirPod Pros, right? And so you can see sort of how much engineering effectiveness and efficiency that happens in Apple's products, right? They're really good, well-designed products. They're not always maybe the best product of that type, but
I can give you one answer, and it will basically just negate that whole thing.
But
butterfly switches.
Okay, yes, but
And then this is the same kind of deal that they do with the lightning cable. They get commentary, and instead of fixing the problem, as in, okay, we figured out the switches are not the best, let's fix it in the next release. Like they
right, which could be 10 years later.
Well,
and then they give you a touch bar, and everyone hates the touch bar, and then it's just
the bad
unfolding.
switches came with the touch bar.
Yeah.
I have a laptop with a touch bar
and three-dimensional haptic feedback on your mouth, and it's just like, okay,
well, that's
whatever.
fine. That's wonderful. Actually, it actually works really nice because it reduces the amount of moving parts.
For all that you can say, as much as I want to say negative about Apple on some things, they do innovate in some places, like the touchpad. The touchpad came on laptops from Apple. I don't know if go look on the wiki and do your research. Maybe they are not the true inventor of that, but the first application of seeing it anywhere
they were the first good one.
Okay, maybe, I don't know. I mean, look, Lenovo and IBM used to experiment quite a bit on things, so I never seen a touchpad until that moment. It was basically some mini version of a trackball, the little the nipple, which was Lenovo's. Or
we have a
ThinkPad,
different word for
IBM.
it here in the Netherlands, but yeah.
Yeah, okay. Well, I mean, that's what they call it here. They call it the nipple. The thumb mouse, whatever you want to call it.
I'll tell you later.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, like, look, some good thing. I have one of his videos too, the Stranger Parts, that guy. I think he had taken apart, and they were talking about the microphone technology, and how innovative the microphone technology is that's in the iPhones, right? I'm sure, like I said, I'm sure it's not Apple's design. I'm sure LG made it or Samsung made it. It's their innovation, and that's why you get the same kind of equivalent level of stuff, in Sony devices or in Samsung devices. It's probably their innovation, not Apple's, but Apple gets exclusivity to it for, a long while, first couple years or something, in their new devices, in their Pro Max Ultra 25.
The problem with this kind of stuff, it's like they make nice devices, but as soon as like something minor goes wrong, it's like, oh yeah, you just have to buy a new one because it's not repairable. And it's kind of like the problem with them.
Yeah.
And this is the same thing, right? So they dig in their heels with these kinds of things, and instead of being on the right side, they are on the wrong side, and they will keep going at it until they wear people down.
It's that problem where they've figured out how to do some things right, or they took risks, and it turns out that was a really good risk, and a lot of people agree. Whether they're educated to know that was a good path or not, that's a whole different story. But through the perception of that, they get to stay on that path, and then they get to make it an actual correct, really innovative thing, 5 years later. And then turns out that is the de facto best way of doing things. And they look like they know what they're doing because they have failed upwards in a direction that has been successful, more successful than not. And as a result of that, the arrogance is that they think all decisions, whether they're risks or not, whether the correct path or not, whether they know that they're on that correct path or not, believe they're always correct. And they dig their heels on things when the more educated, more informed world says, no, that's not the right thing. How dare you do the wrong thing?
Well, there's going to be a fun part when they come out with the Vision Pro next year. It's going to be insanely stupid.
I don't really know.
I wonder if it's going to be on the level of like glass holes, like with Google, with Google Glass.
No,
people are going to be not allowed to come into companies, into stores with these things on.
I think there's a place for some part of industry, not consumers, industry, to to do some augmented reality applications for things that could be useful. If they could just figure out how to do the technology right and not be so concerned about gamers and consumers, and consumers that work in businesses and make a lot of money in those businesses.
That's when you get the whatever the freaking $6,000 display kind of stuff, right? That's because they did that for movie industry, right?
Okay.
For color grading, like they have this very expensive display
right.
with like
and
$1,000
right,
display
and
stand.
So Microsoft was pretty clear when they were doing some good stuff with HoloLens stuff that it's really not for consumer use. It's for more industrial purpose. And they have found that, like, military has found valid ways to utilize it, right? So I think that is probably going to be Apple's success path, but they really are trying to do this bougie thing for consumers. And honestly,
how much is it? I think
they're
it's
not
like $3,500 for
it's not really meant for the average person, and it's not going to be able to do this whole metaverse gaming thing. It probably could, but that's not their forte. They've never ever exceeded at this stuff. And is it because for lack of trying? No, they've tried. It just hasn't worked out for them. They haven't been successful in this space. So therefore, it's not them being private and they're going to come out with the innovator. No, they won't come out with the innovator, because for the last 30 years, they've been incapable of doing that well. They tried their one hand at something way back in like the early Mac days. They had some kind of a gaming console. It was pretty bad. And they've tried. So they just have sort of given up on focusing on that area, right?
But now they have the Mac Pro with an M3 with like for gaming. So
okay. I mean, they've had Radeon discrete GPUs in their systems for years. So, again, even let's say they had NVIDIA stuff in there, it wouldn't make any difference. Their OS is not tweaked or primed to handle for those kind of purposes. It can totally do that stuff, capable of it, like for video editing and whatnot and media stuff.
Oh no, it's perfectly capable. You have not been keeping up, but like that's not the point I was trying to make. But fine.
Yeah.
It's
the larger point that I was trying to get to is it's just not an area where they excel. So, and that's considered to be consumer. And this Vision Pro, when it comes out, I don't know if they're gonna nail it. I think it's just not even price pointed for the consideration of a normal person.
No, it's like you can buy a car for that.
Well, okay, you can buy for $3,500. Not a
pretty nice car here. Definitely, yep.
A down payment on something, maybe.
No.
Can you get a $3,000 car?
I can get a $3,000 car. Yeah, and this is going to be pretty nice too.
Okay. Yeah, not in the U.S.
It's not going to be a new one, but it's going to be secondhand.
Okay,
one.
something
you can buy
used.
a car for that.
Yes. Okay, so technically, if you say that, yes.
Yeah. I think that there's the little conflict of like recycling and reuse and whatever.
Oh yeah, they're the worst offender of that.
So we have over here. I think it's not as normal to buy a new car. It's more of like normal to buy a secondhand car.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think I want to next year get a new car. My first new car ever. I've been doing lease before this.
Yeah, the first new car is the one I currently have, and I'll pay it off in less than a couple of years. So I'm a year ahead of what my loan is. So given the opportunity to continue to succeed on that, we'll see how much it retains its value. where it sits from a private sale or
if the company that controls the updates implodes at some point.
yeah, and we'll see. Maybe I'll get whatever the new hotness is, or maybe there'll be a competitor that's worthy of my time. I don't know. We'll see.
Did you see the Rivian thing?
Yeah, I saw that. I know what your comment was about. That's that. Look, translation is they just something was it was the server sharts, right? So all that security stuff, one screw up, bricked a big percentage of their vehicles.
But they say fat finger. I mean,
that was probably the excuse.
If you're delivering to devices that can kill people,
that's what they say. What actually happened could be probably really worse.
Oh yes.
Yeah. That John was taking their servers offline.
It was me
taking their VMs offline. What do you mean? We can't communicate with your side anymore. Oh, oops.
It was John at the office with his SSH key.
Yeah.
The OpenAI thing. Did you see that?
Yeah, I was like,
it's so bizarre.
What's going on there? And
what I saw is that there is and then this is of course rumors and whatever. I haven't actually confirmed this. I'm not a journalist. I'm just repeating what I heard. Is that they were taking data for ChatGPT 4 from a hacking group.
Interesting.
So the reason that they said he wasn't forthcoming enough is that he was hiding that information. That's why he was let go. But now there's rumors that he is going to come back or something. Or
what I understand was that Microsoft didn't know at all. Now, I don't know about the rumors. I'm just saying is prior to hearing any kind of this is that Satya Nadella didn't know anything. Didn't know the board did this. He heard about it just like everyone else. And while Microsoft's an investor, they're not a board member. And none of the board members are investors. So it kind of reads, it just sort of smells wrong. You might be right. There might be something completely not appropriate that Sam made a decision on and wasn't forthcoming about. That could be the truth. But if the board members had an issue with him as an individual, they don't have to be board members, right? They could just all leave. But instead, they chose to fire him, which reads to me that there's some political...
and there's probably a stink.
Well, I don't really know the truth of anything, but it smells bad.
It stinks. It stinks.
Yeah. And, his co-founder was like, I'm out.
Well, if this, I would like to see like a deep dive on this by what's his name? Goes by Folding Ideas on YouTube.
Oh, that's one of your videos. I didn't finish watching that.
Wait, no, Folding Ideas. It's not on the list.
Oh, okay.
Folding Ideas has like videos on. He goes deep dive on. Like, for example, he had a flat Earth, people, the whole flat Earth thing, right? So he went into that, and it's like he's a good channel to follow. By the way, he's really good. He's absolutely 100%. This is not he's not on the list today. So
but it sounds familiar. You probably could have shared something with me in the past.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
My equivalent of that would be something like Johnny Harris. He doesn't go down the path of conspiracy, but he does go down a path of explainers a little bit, and he really likes his maps. So anything that has to do with world travel, like he did a thing on this latest thing in the Middle East. He sort of, but he doesn't have agendas, right? So he used to work for Vox, and I forget who was the company that was before Vox. They shut this company down. They were the ones who were putting out like great big story and doing some really neat things. That's all gone now. and then
So
just consolidated down to Vox. I forget who that channel was. They were really good.
so he had a video about these Audible scams. I had a video about NFTs.
Mm-hmm.
He had a video about the GameStop
Game Stomp.
Stonk. GameStonk.
Stonk.
But it's like 2.5 hours of video.
Yeah,
It's
I'm
like
not.
it's such a good video. It's so good.
Yeah, I will say there was this is local to where I live. There was a company that was out of this area. In fact, the mall that I used to go to as a kid and the second mall that is real close to where I am right now, those are the two malls. Those two stores built this amazing gaming store. It was called Electronics Boutique. When they spread their wings internationally, apparently some franchise version of International in Australia still exists, but GameStop was their terrible competitor, and was like such a terrible company from the inside out. But they basically did a takeover and bought Electronics Boutique, took all their retail stores, fired everybody, took all their warehouses, sold them all off, and basically destroyed Electronics Boutique competitively, left alone because they didn't care about Australia market, so they got to be still named Electronics Boutique, and they basically crushed all their competition and fired everybody, and still continued on to be a terrible gaming retail store, right? And so the fact that they were not in great shape and GameStonk, yeah, I think that's a crappy thing to do. But also, I mean, if you're picking a terrible target, their karma has earned it, right?
Okay, but like the whole thing about the GameStop is like it's all people trying to there's a lot of backstory about it. For like, there's people who went through the Reddit with the financial stuff,
mm-hmm.
and they really Wall Street Bets, I think it was called.
Right, yeah.
And there's like
one individual,
the same it's the same people who do the crypto scams. It's like the same the monkeys and the NFTs and whatever.
Bored Apes, and
yeah, it's exactly the same.
The yacht
it's
club or whatever.
Yep.
Bored Yacht Club.
Speaking of, I heard that they got their eyes lasered.
I heard that too. They were probably
I should have put the video in.
Put the
here.
wrong one. And
Big Clive did a video about where he went into some of the footage from like the event,
mm-hmm.
and he pinpointed exactly where the lights were that were the cause of the problems.
Yeah,
there was like an exhibition with toilets and whatever, and
they were probably just like, just give me black lights.
Lamps.
Yeah, just give me UV. I mean, black lights are UV lamps, but they're on different wavelengths.
The same organization that organized this, also organized a previous event in Hong Kong with the same freaking problem. So they've done this before, and they still haven't learned anything.
Yeah.
But then again, it's like, I really don't care as much about these people, and they kind of got what they wanted.
Right, so. Karma. Yeah, literally. So, yeah.
Yeah, I hate those freaking monkeys.
I know. You wrote an extension in Chrome to ignore them all on Twitter or X or whatever.
Yep.
X Twitter. Which is literally becoming more true.
Yeah. At least Blue Sky is opening up, so it's nice.
Yeah. I mean,
I'm kind of sad about it.
I like Blue Sky for a couple reasons.
It's so nice and quiet.
It's nice and quiet. I literally follow a feed that's called Only Posts, which is basically no requotes, no reply comment thread things. It's just the initial single post from the people that you follow. And to go into the Sky Feeder to do that, it's like pretty easy, and like someone realized they could do that because they were getting irritated. Like, and I follow somebody who's another like fellow anime podcaster, one of the early ones, like we were, and I know the guy and I see him at Otakon every once in a while. He's a nice guy. He's a very particular personality type. But he re-quotes and retweets or reboosts or whatever a whole lot. And you can look at it and it could be a whole lot of noise. But it makes sense when it's coming from that individual. So if you just want to see his posts, not his bazillion re-quotes, reboost posts, whatever you want to call it. I don't even know what's called in Blue Sky. Then you have to take one with the other. It all comes,
I saw a bunch of like bots coming on there, and then like a day later they were gone. They were all gone.
Yeah.
I was like on Twitter, they still haven't been able to, even though like I go in every single day and block like 10 bots.
Mm-hmm.
Right? They cannot figure out a signal that they are bots. Report them. I deliberately report them. These are bots. They are female name with female avatar with like porn star avatars and whatever. And it's like so easy to detect that they're bots. Yeah. Right? And Twitter takes them forever. Blue Sky, they're gone. And then the entire freaking tree of the invite is examined. Right? They use those invite keys to see if they are bots or not.
Right. So that they can't just be all one thing. Look, whether it's correct or not, Twitter's approach, which is, it's a pretty shitty approach. Some bad decisions are being made there. It's pretty clear. You pay $8 a month per, right? Or whatever the cost is now. Is that the defeating factor? I don't know. In the pre-existing
it's not working at all. It's like they make it worse.
Yeah. In the case of Blue Sky, it's just quiet and there's not a lot of noise and there's no agenda to push on me to make me do what it wants me to see and hear and whatever. There is a discovery thing. You can go in there, but it's not pushed upon you every freaking millisecond. And that's what Threads does, and I hate it. It's the same Facebook problem. Yeah. I will say though, I will say that Twitter's For You is pretty good for me. There's the occasional like, hey, let me ask you a question that I know it's going to get generically a lot of response, which means to give me more followers and give me more attention. Right? You have those people asking those questions like, oh, I want to answer. No, I don't want to feed into that person's like BS loop.
I like the fact that there is no For You on Blue Sky.
Yeah, you can go into Discovery or you can pick a feed.
Do it yourself. If you want to,
you can curate it. Or you can go into Sky Builder and go create your own curated feed.
There's a...
you don't even have to publicize it to share it with anybody.
There's on Twitter, there are so many freaking Nazis, literal Nazis, and I'm like, and there's live Nazi bots, even as well. I'm like, like there's so much garbage on Twitter at the moment. I'm like,
but it's always been that way. For
but they were not as prevalent. And that's like
they had a moderation team of some sort that was constantly busy. Facebook doesn't. They farm it out to like low-paying corporations in Ireland and in other parts of the world that are, not the U.S. I don't mean to represent. They mean they moderate U.S., North America stuff, and they're in parts of the world where they shouldn't, they're not contained inside the said countries, and they farm it out to, or they create satellite offices en masse where they low paying, that's how they handle their moderation teams, right? It's not a quality situation. It's just legally minimal viability, to get them out of legal issues or whatever. Regardless of the volume is like, almost 1 billion people or 500 million people, or whatever it is. So not doing a quality job. In the case of Blue Sky, it's just not pushy. And I like that. That being said, I'm also not really discovering new people in the Blue Sky community. I'm also not venturing that often into it. Where I go into threads and I was like, oh, I can see what they're doing. I know exactly why they're relating, because I have one friend who I like to see their posts, and they follow this jerk of a whatever personality, and now all of a sudden I'm getting to see them through the tree of the relationships of the followers. Yeah. And I'm like, and it's still this sort of Facebook BS, which is still obnoxious. It's just as bad as an Instagram, right? It's still bad. And I hate that it could be a quality product if they just didn't do that, but then they wouldn't make any money. So
yeah, I would. I'm not gonna say this too loud, but like I would pay for Blue Sky.
Yeah, I guess
if it can be the same as it is now and continue to improve and not be
right,
algorithmic garbage shoveling, right. I would pay for that. Definitely.
If it was
just won't pay for something that Space Karen produces, because it just gets worse and worse by the day, and it's only getting worse. And it's like he's torching the entire fucking company.
Yeah, and I know what the intention is, but the intention is just misaligned. The actions are misaligned to the intention. So you add value, and then you add reason for people to be around, and instead structurally was not a sound thing from the inside of the company, and the correction to that is destroying some really the few positive things that Twitter succeeded at, that became a standard for everybody else. That's a positive. And he just
Twitter
destroyed
used to be really good at delivering like events, like
even though
it's
sort of comes from an origin of arrogancy, that verified program was a positive, right? So that was a positive, and that's
they reduced that verification to, oh, you have a credit card, and that's the verification,
right? And so they destroyed that, right? But that was a thing that everyone copied. That's a way to kind of qualify, who the real Sam Jackson is, or whatever it is.
I like the way that Tumblr did it, where they were selling crabs on Tumblr.
Okay.
Like you want a check mark, you can buy as many check marks as you want. You can have like 100,000 check marks if you want to pay for it. That's fine. They just do it.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it's really cool.
But I mean, that was one of the few positive things that was good for social media.
But it's kind of the same thing that happened to Tumblr. Like they are doing the same thing that happened to Tumblr. They drove everybody who was providing content away, and then the Nazis moved in.
Well,
it's like the same thing is happening to Twitter. It's making it much, much worse.
I guess one of the founders of Tumblr left when all that sort of breakdown for Tumblr. I never was really on Tumblr because it was more of sort of fandom focus. So you'd have certain kind of communities there, and it could be a great experience for you, fairly isolated, depending on where you wanted to live inside Tumblr. Which is sort of the same problem, I think, for me with Mastodon in general. Yeah, if you curate it hard and you filter it hard, you probably could do okay on Mastodon. But if you get on a server that has a lot of shipping toxicity, I can't say the one in Philly is exactly like that, but it has some kind of radicals a little bit. Radical, strong opinion people on occasion. that while it's a privilege, it's not an open to everybody. You have to. I know somebody. I know the owner of the. I've known him for years, so like I'm recognizable among him. So I got early invite on, and but it was much better when I was like on Mastodon Social and whatever, some of the more open ones where there was just this tremendous amount of shipping radical toxicity that I just didn't like on the local server. So I didn't feel like I wanted to stay there. And so that's why I haven't signed into Mastodon, that social account, and God knows how long. And so I don't live there as much. But I don't live on Blue Sky or Twitter that much, but I'll pop into Blue Sky for the very quiet, nice, very focused people who I know are simulcasting every single post. But at the very least, it's at least more of a welcome
there
space.
You can catch it without,
and
five layers of filtering and shit.
The only thing I haven't done is set up like my own Mastodon server and signed up through Blue Sky's network, my own Mastodon. It would be neat to do that.
Blue Sky and Mastodon cannot be connected.
They're on ActivityPub, so you can set up an ActivityPub server.
Nope.
No. They're using ActivityPub.
You mean Threads? Threads can be connected to Mastodon. The app protocol is not the same.
Blue Sky is based on ActivityPub. Nope. It's just not open yet. People have set up their own ActivityPub servers, and so that's why they don't have a Blue Sky, whatever .social, ending domain, top level domain.
Okay, so Blue Sky is not based on the ActivityPub protocol.
It's derived from ActivityPub.
Nope, it is not.
Yeah, that's what I heard for people who are digging in the original betas. Threads is because they want to attach to Mastodon.
Yeah, but like Blue Sky is something completely different.
Because they want to be with the established network so that they can dominate it. That's a Facebook tactic. So, but that being said, you've heard me talk about this sort of shipping of toxicity that I find a lot on Mastodon. And so, look, I follow at least one person. I don't know who it is, but it's like, let me look it up. Fine, I'll tell you what it is. I was like, that's good advice. Like, oh, I share the same thought, right? And it's like Picard's tweets or something. Yeah, Picard tips. Picard tips.
Is it like the same thing like the Riker Googling?
No, I don't know about that one, but this is Picard tips at botsin.space. So I'll just read whatever it is. I don't know if it's a good tip, but it says, Picard exploration tip. Yes, there's hundreds of billions of galaxies, but will take 1,000 lifetimes to map this one. So focus for now. Right? And so it's not bad advice. So like, but I was like, I know it. Obviously, Patrick Stewart is not on the end of that, or his machine of, people are not on the other end of that. There was she's well past, but one that I like to follow on Twitter, which I'm not there anymore, and she's since passed, but there was some sort of parody account that said Betty White fucking tweets or something like that, and it was like funny. It was like someone doing it in the tone of Betty White, sort of kind of fun, radical personality type in characters that she's played. That's more of her comedic side with like whatever current day hot takes. And I was like, yeah, that's pretty good. Right? So,
you heard of bird rights activist?
No.
No? Okay. It's like it's a shit posting, but it's pretty funny.
Yeah.
They moved to Blue Sky as well.
Yeah.
It's like there used to be a bunch of like Twitter bots that would post pictures of rats or pictures of otters or whatever every hour, like foxes every hour, and they've all moved to Blue Sky because it's and it's good because they show that it's a bot, which is great.
Yeah.
I just want to follow this because I like the pictures coming into my feed.
Right.
And like, and then Twitter is like, oh no, we have to hide the bots. We have to hide the bots. The good bots are bad, but the Nazi bots are great. What? Why am I getting all this shit in my
Well,
timeline?
there's just sort of not being picky about it anymore.
Oh
So
no! It's 99. The For You is 99% garbage at the moment. It's like
yeah,
it's Elon Musk
I
and
I,
his friends
I will say
that end
not
up in
so
there.
much for me on Twitter, but I don't really go in there anymore.
Yeah.
But when they added that feature, it's actually curates pretty well for me. And it's not so pushy, even though it's pushy occasionally. Um, and look, just because a person has X amount of followers size doesn't mean, and I have a friend or someone I follow follows them in the tree, you should be pushing that at me. TikTok does that. And I'm like,
Mm.
why am I getting the same person? I don't really care about the costume of the week. I don't care that they're pretty and everything they do is vain, and they like to see how they look in the camera, and I'm like, that's clearly a reason to show off your body, like, and I'm sure you follow the profile link, it goes somewhere, like, like, I'm sure, and like, no, block, right? And I hate that it does that. I hate that. I always hated this stuff about social media when it gets pushy and toxic, and then the toxicity is pushed on you because it's profitable. Like,
Well, it
get
only
out
got
of my
worse
space.
when they started to algorithmically trying to push more of the same thing to the people, and then
Right.
getting them to link to go to more of the things that
Create
give
the
more
relative
ads.
bubble, right? Which
Yeah.
is exactly where Google search was a value add, but now it's getting so taken advantage of, right? And there's a whole industry. There's been industry for 20 years who takes advantage of this stuff, and then they try to hack the algorithm, which
Well,
is
they're hacking the algorithm now by generating content.
right.
Uh,
That yeah, it's the what was it, Tip Hero or something like that, where it's some company in Russia who creates these stupid little things, and then of course people are like, well, that doesn't actually work, does it? And then of course they make a reaction video, and they go, see, it doesn't work, but then they get lots of followers. It's a technique to respond to a technique to respond to a technique, and it's just regurgitation of just a completely negative, toxic behavior.
it's just scams all the way down.
Yeah. Yeah.
Speaking of scams,
Yeah, let's get to some links.
let's get to some scammy links.
Was there any particular topic point you wanted to vocalize about pulling servers offline?
No, I guess we're past that now. There's some servers I would like to pull offline,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't have access to them, unfortunately.
Yeah, is that called Twitter?
Mm,
Or all the servers that run all the bots that create all the negativity on Twitter?
maybe.
Yeah.
Anyway, so first one. I have the forgotten $500 million crazy frog
Oh
scam.
God, I hated that thing.
Ding 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 ding.
I hate it.
Polymatic link /1cc for that one.
Yeah.
And then crypto is bad, y'all. Who knew? This is not the title of the video, but this is CoffeeZilla going deep dive on, well, not deep dive, but like just recapping the whole lawsuit with Sam Bankman-Fried.
Mm-hmm.
Polymatic link /1cd for that one. Then multi-streaming to multiple platforms. This is what's his name?
Epos Vox.
Epos Vox about the new Twitch allowing the multi-stream stuff and how to do it. So Polymatic link /1ce for that. The Atomic Sound Blaster 1CF for that one. Rock paper scissors. How far did you get?
I don't really like CP grade stuff. It's the same thing with like a Vsauce thing. He just gets down to a path too long. So I just, at some point, I tune out.
There's so many videos. Polymatic link /1CG. It's I kind of like that it ended up with 1CG for that one. So Polymatic link /1CG
okay.
for rock paper scissors.
Okay, yeah.
And then a jumperless breadboard. Polymatic link /1CH.
That was
for
neat.
one.
But the thing is, mofo expensive.
Yeah, but I don't think you need more than one.
Yeah, sure, but I mean, like, imagine building, minimizing sort of that flexibility. Now, like, look, you don't even need circuitry if you do FPG, you know,
FPGA.
FPGA, things, but they're just as expensive.
Anyway,
Um,
did you end up using your soldering iron yet?
Not yet. Again, I haven't. I am slowly, as you saw us talking about ESP32 stuff, I'm slowly graduating to a little bit more active interest. So I bought some ESP32 boards. I
You
turned
should
two
you
of
should
them.
consider getting like a basic Arduino experimenting kit with like sensors and stuff,
Well, I can do
and
that
then
with
learn
these
how to
things.
read them.
Right. I can do that with these things. And I can buy little modules and stuff pretty
Yeah,
inexpensively.
those
And
are
I can.
modules, but I would suggest, right, if you want to do it
Right.
some
But I
soldering
could I could
eventually.
plug jumper cables from the back of the board through the GPIO points over to a breadboard and experiment the same way. It's all very similar, and I can then use
Until you blow
their
up your
IDE
expensive.
or Arduino's boards IDEs to go ahead and program these things.
Yeah.
So
Just keep in mind voltages.
yes, I understand, right? And that's why some of the yeah, and so that I grabbed all the schematics. So I bought some ESP32 boards. I turned two of them in to Bluetooth proxies for the Home Assistant. So I did that,
Yeah.
and then I
We don't.
bought recently these little ones with a screen and stuff on it. I'm going to turn them into voice assistants. That's my goal on these things. The development stuff is not there. I was playing with it last night. So,
Okay.
but I will get to a point where, especially these little guys, they're little modules. You can plug them into different docks that have those different pin outs on them, and I could then push them to a board and do some soldering, and your gift will be useful. So I'm leaning in the direction I'm building my comfort is what I'm getting at. So.
Okay.
Okay, so we're on a
You're up
links to
next.
me. All right, so I found this one interesting. So you know how the Mandalorian Lucasfilms built
The volume.
a big old big massive like 100-foot 200-foot size video wall, and they use it as background, and they're built some software technology to plug in sensors and angles and stuff with Unreal Engine, so those backgrounds look like they're on location, but they're not. They're basically getting real time from the point of wherever the filming camera is angled correctly to adjust for so they're on a sound stage with these big massive high quality video walls. So anyhow, this group I guess does this for concerts and some video effects places, and so they were building like their 80 by 90-foot wall in one of their warehouses, and so this is a video that kind of shows you how that some of that technology and stuff works. I found it interesting. Polymatic.link/1CI. So this next link, this is really for you. I saw hamsters and I'm like, WTF. And I'm like, John probably already knows about this channel. Either he likes it or he avoids it. But this was the Minecraft one, and you're nodding on the avoid. Polymatic.link/1CJ. The whole channel is like this. I will say these little mazes are interesting. There's some work being put in on it.
Oh yeah. But
Yeah.
it's like
Yeah.
I don't think it's very good for the hamster.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyhow, moving along, taking a different kind of obsession, which I found interesting. I follow this person on TikTok. They also have a YouTube channel. This is a YouTube link. Lego Pirates of the Caribbean, where there's actual water and some other systems. Found it really interesting. I like seeing this stuff. Polymatic.link/1CK. And if I didn't say before, the hamster one was Polymatic.link/1CJ. Okay, moving along. Again, I like a lot of these green energy things. There was a more promotional video that was talking about the largest floating solar farm where they're basically deploying out solar panels inside water, and usually in bays and stuff like that, utilizing that that space to do this. But this was just a company. It was a BBC video from a few years ago, maybe a few months ago. Floating solar farm, Polymatic.link/1CL. So that's a new place where there's a lot of unused water area where they're starting to figure out, to deal with the heat issues that solar panels can heat up. So they put them over water. And sometimes you see this, what was it? Veritasium did this, where some of the balls, right? The sort of, for people that have reservoirs, they because that way the water doesn't evaporate, right? In the I said reservoirs. I can't. Why can't I speak today?
Reservoir.
Yeah, thank you. That. Okay, so this was Stranger Parts video. This guy was
Strange Parts. Yes.
I think I keep saying Stranger. I want to keep saying Stranger
Things.
I don't know. My brain's not working today. Inside an LED factory. That was one of his factory tours. Apparently more are coming. I kind of enjoy when he goes through that. I know it's like promotional, whatever, but I'm not buying their LEDs specifically. But it's still interesting to see how this sort of manufacturing process, how it's really very precision, and it's very, very interesting.
I think quite a few of them.
Have you bought it from this particular company?
No, but I know that like a lot of these, like the NeoPixels and stuff, that they
come out of places like this. Yeah. Okay, so that was Polymatic.link/1CM. And then last, this was the tested video I was talking about with Adam Savage, where they were X-raying AirPods, and they were showing Apple's AirPod Pros and knockoffs, and showing you what the internals look like and stuff like that, and the circuitry and stuff like that. So if you're interested in that stuff, I found that one interesting to watch. Polymatic.link/1CN.
Okay. Alan, where can they find you?
Blue Sky, if you have an invite.
Or soon you can just go there.
I guess you can go there and look at someone's profile, whether you have an invite.
No, you can't at the moment, but they are opening it up soon. So Polymatic.link/Alan for Alan. And for me, you can find me at Polymatic.link/John. For feedback, you can reach us at podcast@Polymatic.media. Our website is Polymatic.media, and I hope you tune in next time.
Yeah.